it's Matt here, and welcome to another episode of Bricking It. And this time it's actually a model I've been building for quite a while now. I'm looking up. It's actually the outside braced boxcar, although I suppose single sheathed will also do it as well, because some of those had exposed beam work as well. This is the This is a 7Y build, same length as the BMR boxcar, so it is scaled out at 40 feet. But it is scaled out to 7 studs across, so it is a little narrower for the sort of a older look, but it will scale really well with the 8Y stuff because of all the side bracing, that sort of stuff. So it's, although it's a 7Y body, because of all the detail and extra everything else, it'll actually pack it out to roughly 8 wide anyway, so it'll sort of blend in quite well. Also, there is a bit of a difference because it's sort of the outside brace version. So obviously you got the main sides here. The sides after about here, so you've got the 2 studs for the steps, and then you got another line of studs here, are the only vertical sort of bits in the entire model. All the sides here are all snot, so there's a 1x8 brick, there's a 1x6 there, for example, and you've also got the roof as well. That's also regular sort of building, but again, very minimalistic. Most of the build is on the sides, of the snots go that way. The underframe, most of that is facing the other way as well. Or some of this is at least, like the ends are, and the rest is facing regular as well. The ends are snotted as well, so they're on the side. Doors again are snotted, and it's just lots of little bits to make this a really unusual model as well. Now obviously, because it's 7Y, there is a few changes to the roof. This model isn't actually complete, I should point that out. I'm trying to do a bit of overhang for the steps in a specific way, so I'll have to have a look at that, and it'll possibly get refined again when I build some physical models. So I do want to build a physical model, at least one of this boxcar, maybe in a few different liveries as well, depending on what I can afford and everything else. So obviously it's the scale 40 foot, so it's a fairly modern outside brace boxcar, even if it is on the thinner side for internal diameter anyway. The door itself is actually modelled after a Pennsylvania Railroad example, I believe it is. A lot of these doors actually were, again, wooden planks, but had another supporting beam across there. Now, in Lego form, that's not really representable unless you make the entire one another plate out. So obviously this is snotty, so it's on its side, so it wouldn't be adding a half stud offset, it'd be adding another plate. But I think that would be too much in terms of depth. So to get depth, but then it wouldn't really fit in with the rest of the model, and it would also make it really wide as well, because it's already at the widest point with the door. So adding another stud would not help it in that respect. I mean, the door itself is already pretty wide. I mean, it's roughly a tile protruding beyond these braces here, and then obviously you've got flex tube to go in between these braces as well, which isn't in the LDD version, but it's one of the things where it's a bit of a hodgepodge. This isn't, as well, I should point out as well, this model isn't designed to represent one particular railroad. It's designed to be a fairly generic one, which you can mix and match as needed. So for example, the sides here, you could actually take out some of those braces and actually make it, instead of 3 diagonals, just make it 2. And change other little bits around to make it suit the railroad a bit better. So obviously I've not represented the flex tube, but you might have the flex tube go one way for certain braces, or you might flip it around and have it slightly differently for different models. You might have it where it's actually like a sort of like triangle shape, because on some, I have seen evidence of that on some photos. And again, the door is something that can be completely changed around as well, because obviously it's knotted, so you can always just take it off and do your own version. That would be a fairly easy thing to do. And the brake stand as well. And the brake stand is a fairly simple one. It's just a straight vertical one. This is more designed to represent the older style of brake stand. But again, you can always take some of these bits off and change it around, and maybe change it to a jumper tile, and then fit your brake wheel on there, and then you can fit a proper one at the base. It's very much a flexible model. Designed so you can do quite a lot of adjustment to suit the needs of the railroad and what era you're modelling in as well, because obviously the vertical brake stand here you wouldn't really have seen after about 1910, I think it was. After that it was all built on the side, because obviously continual brakes and that sort of stuff probably was faded out earlier, so probably upright stands were probably very sort of old hat at that age, and probably been converted to a side or end mounted one anyway. The underframe as well. Now you can't really see the underframe because of the grid in LDD, so I'm actually going to change the view to view mode. I'll change the world to the sand one. I think the sand one shows it off the best, and you can sort of see here we've got quite a lot of detail, and I've actually fitted in most of the detail that you would find on a real life boxcar. So we've got our actuating cylinder here, we've got the two acting levers. Now obviously they're not to scale, there should be about half that thickness I think it is in real life, but the 1x3 plates do a reasonable job of approximating that. Anyway, the flex tube section here is actually supposed to go all the way to the actuator bar there. Unfortunately, they don't make one quite long enough to do that. But nevertheless, that's the best I can do, and it does the job as far as I'm concerned. And then again, we've got another one there. So these two sections here would actually be going to the bogies, and there'd be your actuator rods to actually activate the brakes on the bogies, because you'd have two levers here. One, so these would actually act the brakes separately. So brake systems are complicated, and there's far better people than me to explain the brake systems. But I thought this was a reasonably good representation of those. And for the others, when you're looking from the side, it looks okay. This would be I think it's a bleed valve. Or a check valve or something like that, so you can actually check how it works. I've also seen some examples of the pipe work where this is actually how the brakes are applied. So if there's like extra force on it, it'd actually apply brakes, and direct airflow to take it brakes on and off. So who knows? But nevertheless, it seems to be a fairly common aspect, so I've put it in there as well. That's really the model, really. If I go back to build mode, one of the interesting bits about the top is the bottom rails. Because of the snot construction, you don't actually have a mounting point for them there, so they're actually underside mounted and held up with these boat studs. You can sort of see them there, so it gives a really unusual look to the underside. Unfortunately, it's just part of the way I've found to do that way to get the door rails. There are obviously other things you could do if you wanted to, but this is good enough for me as far as I'm concerned. The top is actually a completely different story. It's actually using the fairly new 2x2 plate with two studs removed. There's actually just 6 of those in a line. So obviously you'll have this break every 2 studs, but as far as I'm concerned, it's fine. It's a good enough approximation as far as I'm concerned. And the reason why I've done that is because that actually means then a lot like the bottom, there's actually no studs to mount it against. Possibly the door. The door you'd probably be able to do, but the rest of it there isn't. So actually just held in by tiles on top. So it's just a really haphazard way, if you like, of getting it done, but it gets it done. So I'm not too bothered about that. If I build it in real life, I might change this around so there's a bit more support, because obviously these are just floating, if you like, and only holding the tires on top. So I do want a bit more of a secure method. So I might put like a support bracelet at the back to keep everything in line. But that's it for the Boxcar. The mounting points as well, I will point out, use actually the Technic pin. And that actually fits in a Technic brick, which is snotted on the side. So, you know, as I said, there's quite a lot of snot to this model. You never quite realise what is and isn't snot until you try and do something, and then you go, I can't use that way. So, but yeah, you know, it's turned out to be a nice model. And hopefully I'll be adding one in 2019 to the roster. Hopefully I can add more than one, remains to be seen, because I want to do one with a different sort of door pattern and a different brake handle as well, just a bit of variation. So there you go. That's the outside brace Boxcar for this episode of Breaking It, and that's it for this video. So yeah, that's it for now, and see you later.